So in my years of experience in the gym, being a trainer and a trainee for quite a bit of time now, I've noticed there's a lot of confusion between what strength training is and what practicing of a strength sport is. Now, before we even dive into this, I want to give myself a shout out because a few days, maybe weeks ago, I posted a video talking about the internal strength model of strength training, not strength sport, explaining more or less how that is, how I apply it to myself and my clients. And I strongly recommend you guys check it out because there's a lot of good information there if you want to learn more about what strength training is. But in the video, I want to make a correction because at some point I said that most of your motor learning, of your skill acquisition for a strength sport, comes from joint afferents, from your joints sending signals to your brain and kind of teaching your brain how to perform the movements over and over again. Now, while that is correct, your body also learns from your five senses, from your coach giving you the cue, hey, kick higher, or hey, drive through on your bench more, whatever the coaching cue for the sport is. I made it seem so that the coaching cue was unimportant when specifically, especially for beginners, it is not unimportant whatsoever. It is just that joint afferents is the first layer of communication to your brain, and so it should be our first priority in training for our body, for strength training. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of confusion between these two, specifically because they are done in the same setting, which is the weight room. Strength training is done in the weight room, and most strength sports are also done in the weight room. If you don't know, strength sports, the most popular ones are bodybuilding, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and even strongmen. Those all count towards strength sports. And so I'm going to go over the definitions of both of them and what the training for each of them should look like and how you should combine these two to be able to be successful in your sport or whatever exercise activity you're trying to perform. So first, let's define what strength training is. Strength training is using active inputs, meaning using the force of your body to change anatomical structures within your body such that it makes you more prepared or better capable to perform a certain skill, which the skill may or may not be involved with a strength sport. And so the focus of strength training is in using your own force to train your body, not to act on any external object. This becomes even more important when it also becomes the job of strength training to make sure that you perform whatever activity that is while avoiding injury to the highest degree possible. And so we have two goals here. Improve your body to make sure that you are better able to perform the activity, and number two, make sure that you stay injury-free while performing that activity. But the most important part to understand is that strength training focuses on your body, on your anatomy, not on acting on any skill that is external to you. Now, when we talk about a strength sport, that is the opposite. A strength sport is being able to use the anatomy that we have built through strength training to be able to accomplish a task outside of your body. Now, most sports do that. Most sports are organizing your body to accomplish a task, such as throw a football, catch a baseball, hit a tennis ball with a racket. The difference is the strength sports largely rely on your anatomy, whereas more skill sports rely less on your anatomy and more on the skill of the sport. I'll give you a great example. Archery. There aren't many anatomical demands to archery, really. There are some, obviously arm strength, core stability, some of them you can make an argument for that, but compare archery to something like powerlifting, which is, I would argue, even 90% strength related. It is 90% dependent on how good your anatomy is. That's why in some sports you see people that aren't that genetically gifted being able to be successful in them. Soccer is a great one of them. Soccer is very skill-based. Archery is very skill-based. Basketball can or cannot be skill-based depending on your height. But it is important to understand why strength sports are called that. They are called that because they are dependent a lot on your anatomy. Now, the problem with confusing these two is that it leads to more or less two different people with two different goals doing the exact same thing just because they are done in the same environment. It is not the case that only because that person is also in the gym, that means that you should be training like them. You have no idea what they're training for. So you can imagine if there's a powerlifting gym and someone that has never seen any type of training whatsoever, and they see people at a powerlifting gym lifting weights, they're gonna be, oh, this is what I do to have big, because powerlifters are big. They have big legs, they have big pecs. So I want to do that too, expecting that powerlifting, the sport of powerlifting, is what gives them the anatomical consequences that they're looking for, which it may or may not. However, the inputs from strength training are more directed and more precise towards that person getting the goal that they want, which may or may not be to bench press a lot of heavy weight in the first place. And so the confusion can even be so high that I often see people that are looking for strength training hiring someone that teaches a specific strength sport to be able to train them, which is not what they were looking for in the first place. And so when people come to me asking me, Nick, can you coach me for powerlifting? And I'm like, yes, of course I can. However, mostly what I do is here, is the strength training, is the changing of your anatomy. I don't coach necessarily the skill of powerlifting. And to illustrate this even better, which is more or less of a joke, but if you understand sports, you understand how different these two are. You wouldn't put Bill Belichick or Andy Reid or Steve Kerr to lead the strength training part of the Department of Strength and Conditioning for their respective franchises. Steve Kerr, fantastic at basketball, fantastic at the skill of basketball, fantastic at the organization of a basketball team. Same with Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. But they don't know anatomy. They don't know physiology. They don't know how to manipulate the variables of the human body to make it so that that human body is more capable of accomplishing the tasks of the respective sport that they coach. So in one case would be basketball and football. And so that is a fallacy. Hiring someone that makes their whole coaching platform to be able to teach a specific sport and expect them to teach you how to build your anatomy better. That is not what they're meant for. That's not what they're there to do. And real talk, this is quite frankly, apart from Olympic lifting and maybe strongmen, bodybuilding and powerlifting, they don't need a lot of skill coaching. I would argue powerlifting is like 90% of the strength sport, and bodybuilding is 95% of the strength sport. There's not a lot of skill involved. Now, there's a lot of skill with posing. There's a lot of skill with preparation and nutrition for a bodybuilding show, and there certainly is a certain level of skill to a powerlifting meet and choosing attempts and whatnot. But the quantity of your success in the sport comes a lot more from how good your anatomy is and a lot less from how good you are at the skill of the sport in both cases. And so, food for thought, and what makes me think the most: do most strength sports like powerlifting and bodybuilding even need a skill coach, or would they be better off spending most of their time, money, and energy on someone that is going to attend to their anatomy more than their skill? Some food for thought.